Hello, good evening, and welcome to WMT Reviews 12 Nights of Halloween. I am Wiseman Tanofsky. Now, last year we were introduced to the origins of the vampire, and this year it's time to look at their greatest nocturnal rival, and the only creatures the Nosferatu fear, the lycanthrope, more commonly known as the werewolf. Infected by the scratch, bite, or occasionally the bloodline of another, the werewolf walks as a normal man for the days and most nights of their lives, but upon the full moon, they undergo an agonizing transformation into the form of a monstrous bipedal wolf. A being purely driven by the instinct to hunt, kill, and feed upon all it encounters with no memory of their mortal lives while they wear the beast's form. As such, the werewolf has always been a very tragic monster within the horror genre, the curse driving its victims into isolation to protect their loved ones from their insatiable hunger, often destroying their lives in the process. The werewolf, therefore, is a great storytelling tool for the horror filmmaker, and Universal were keen to add this creature to their growing pantheon of classic horror monsters. They did so with the release of 1941's The Wolfman. Set in 20th century Wales, the film tells the tragic story of Larry Talbot as he becomes infected with the werewolf virus and struggles with the curse's effects on those around him. It's the archetypal werewolf legend, and it's the film we're having a look at tonight. This is the WMT review of The Wolfman. So what's the story? Larry Talbot, played by Lon Chaney Jr., returns to his home of Llanwelly to reconcile his differences with his father, played by Claude in the wake of his brother's death. Becoming romantically interested with local girl Gwen, played by Evelyn Ankers, Larry defends her friend from a sudden wolf attack, being bitten in the process. Larry is then told by a fortune teller that not only was the wolf her own son Bela, played by legendary Dracula star Bela Lugosi, but that upon the full moon he too will transform into a wolf. Haunted by the terrible actions he undertakes in the wolf's form, Larry is eventually beaten to death by his own father when he attacks Gwen as the wolf, and leaves his father to watch in horror as the wolf's dead body transforms back into his son. For a film so restricted by a tight studio budget and a lack of content provided by the people who wanted it made, The Wolfman looks amazing. Every nighttime scene is awash with swirling mists and gnarled, leafless trees, littering the landscape with suspense and mystery, really aiding the film's subtext regarding the unknown and the enigma of the undiscovered world. The story is that of a Greek tragedy, a man who loses his humanity and becomes doomed to stalk and kill upon every full moon, robbing him of any chance he has of happiness. Hence the presence of the romantic interest, as a reminder of the life he might have had he not crossed paths with the animalistic form of Bela that fateful night. While being frightened by what's put in front of the viewer, there is a far deeper feeling of sorrow and pity for the monster, far more than any other Universal horror monster. This film captures that perfectly, through not only the story but by the incredible performance of Lon Chaney Jr. in the title role. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the cast. As I say, Lon Chaney Jr. is brilliant in the role of Larry Talbot. Second only to his role in Of Mice and Men, Chaney portrays the regret and guilt of his human form perfectly, coupled with his obvious fear of his next transformation, and the consequences that it has to bring. A lot of this can be seen simply in his expressions. His deeply lined and troubled face tells all the audience needs to know about this lead character before he even speaks. We'll get to his performance as the Wolfman itself in just a minute. Taking on the role of his father is Claude giving a fantastic performance from the moment he appears to the moment he unintentionally bludgeons his own son to death. Though he doesn't particularly look like Chaney's father, he most certainly acts it, really standing out in the scene where Larry tries to bring his plight to his father and is met by the cold shoulder of practical rationality. I have to say, though, the film's credibility was slightly hampered by the presence of both Evelyn Anker and Ralph Bellamy playing the Colonel, with their heavy American accents really struggling to capture the British feel. However, that's not to say that their performances are lessened by it. Evelyn in particular creates a brilliantly tragic character. You really do feel like there was a future for her together with Larry, but fate intervened and forced them apart. Just another aspect of life that's robbed from the werewolf victim. Unlike a lot of female horror leads, Anker is never whiny or annoying, and manages to actually act her way through the film rather than just screaming. I was also massively surprised to hear that Bela Lugosi was in this film. Having loved him in Dracula many years beforehand, it was great to see one of my favourite classic horror actors in another iconic horror role. Good to great performances all around. Now on to Chaney's performance as the animalistic Wolfman himself. Now, when we looked at Creature from the Black Lagoon, we had a single creature portrayed by two actors. Now here in The Wolfman, we have a single actor playing both the mortal and the monster, and he does as incredible a job as the werewolf creature as he does in the role of Larry. His movements and actions are feral and fierce, really emulating the classic werewolf look and feel. And the makeup on the beast is one of the most iconic in horror history. Right up there with Frankenstein's monster's forehead, which looks as great today as it first did on the screen. Modern werewolf actors should look no further than this to really nail their roles. Though The Wolfman may not technically be the first werewolf movie, or even the first by Universal, it was the first to really capture the fear and tragedy of the character and the creature. Like all good Universal monster movies, Wolfman doesn't rely on gore or cheap scares, but on the building of suspense and the feel of a real supernatural atmosphere. And what better place to achieve that than in Wales? The land of myths and legends itself really lends itself to the film's atmosphere, and it's instrumental in creating the unnatural feel of this black and white tale. In my opinion, The Wolfman is one of the better werewolf films ever made. The way it tells its story like a real Greek tragedy in the place of a classic horror story really ticks all the right boxes for me in a lot of ways. The story, the performances, the makeup, the look and feel of the film really help to create a legend that could happen anywhere where the mists are thick enough to hide the monsters lurking within. And for that, I would award the film a very good 7.5 on the Orsometer. A great way to tell the werewolf legend, imagined almost from nothing by the film's director, and presented to us with some memorable performances and some incredibly creepy atmosphere. So that's a 7.5 on the Orsometer for The Wolfman. I've been Wiseman Tanofsky. This has been WMT Reviews 12 Nights of Halloween. Thank you very much for listening.